People of Reddit who have accidentally showed inappropriate things from your computer during important presentations. What is your story? I used to work for a point of sale systems company. My coworkers and I would fuck with each other's demo accounts, put in very inappropriate Easter eggs etc. Which is okay, because we weren't in customer facing positions. All of a sudden I get asked by my boss to go on site to a very important customer to train them and demo the system. I go there, quite a formal setting. The customer sets me up with a projector. About 7 people in this meeting. I start showing everything. Everything is fine until I show a lesser known function of the system. It makes a picture pop up of a food item or a product or whatever. My favorite asshole coworker had changed all those pictures to some very explicit gay porn. So I projected this picture of 2 guys fucking each other with a didgeridoo. My immediate reaction was to just start laughing. Luckily the other people started laughing too, and I said, well, as you can see, you can add any picture you want to this function. So if you're selling didgeridoos. Back at the office everyone thought it was hilarious. Luckily the customer thought so too, and is still with our company. I was a university professor. I was a grad student filling the part as cheap labor. There was a time when QuickTime on the Mac would open the last video you were watching. I don't know if it was a feature or what, or is still an option. I have no clue. But I didn't realize it somehow. I think I'd always just double clicked my new video file and it opened. Well, I was sharing my screen giving a lecture and wanted to show a video clip. I clicked QuickTime icon at the bottom. Window opens and it's paused on a clip of my girlfriend of the time in a pretty compromising position. As soon as I saw it, I ripped the power plug from my computer. But it was laptop. As soon as I'd realized that wasn't going to work, I pulled the VGA adapter thing out of the side. I said, "Oh sorry, technical problems," and got a ton of laughs. I closed that fucking thing down and launched the right video, then plugged everything back in and went on like it never happened. After the class one of the kids said, "You're hilarious." Thankfully, they are adults when they are that age, and no one ever reported it or said anything as far as I know. So I wasn't the one presenting, but I was involved in the situation. I'm my 20s. One of my college friends was in a slump with the ladies, like 7 years W/no sex/dates. He was in graduate school for art, and I was out of college and working. He sent a text out late at night on a Thursday with news that he had gone on a date and hooked up with a woman. I didn't get the text since I was asleep, and when I saw it in the morning at work, I hopped onto AOL him. This was like 15 years ago, to congratulate him. He was away, so I sent a ton of messages like, "Yeah dude, good job. What's her name? What does she look like? What did you guys do? Did you have all the sex?" And images and meme pictures of cartoons having sex etc etc. After about 10 minutes, he signed off without responding and was offline the rest of the day. I didn't think anything of it, and then I got a call from him at like 8 PM all upset. Apparently, when I IM'd him, he was doing his thesis defense, and he had his laptop plugged into the projector at the back of the room and only had the little slide advancer tool. So when I IM'd him, they kept popping up on screen and he'd have to stop talking until they went away, or I sent another message. Finally, after a long enough time that he realized I was not going to stop IMing him, he paused his presentation and ran to the back of the room to log out. He was really mad, but mainly out of embarrassment. My IMs actually helped him out, because most of his thesis questions ended up being about the girl and his dating slump, and not hard questions on his work. So he was mad that it happened, but also relieved that his thesis was over. Not me, but I was in that meeting, and I've been dying to tell this story. Once upon a time we had a client that built agriculture machinery. I'll call them John Stag. Their logo is a green and yellow silhouette of a leaping stag. Notice I'm being very careful not to say the actual name. I don't know if they still do social media monitoring, but back then they'd listen for mentions of their brands and Reddit posts would get pulled a lot. Anyway, when we do a presentation, we slap the client's logo on the cover page, and usually we get the logo from Google image search. We've occasionally used the wrong logo by mistake when two companies have the same name. Bit embarrassing but no biggie. This time my manager, 50F, took it upon herself to do the final edition, including finding the logo for the cover. What happened, if I recall correctly, is that she saw a pretty popular Instagram post that featured the logo, so she decided to screenshot and crop that. I didn't see the finished presentation beforehand. We get to the meeting. She opens the presentation in front of a couple of John Stagg execs. The logo is not their actual logo, but rather a parody, in which there are two leaping stags, one of which has a silhouette dick, and is mounting the other. If you Google John Stagg parody logo, it's one of the top results. Me and the others were speechless. My manager didn't see the problem. Oh, there's two stags instead of one. How funny, and nobody dared point out that, lady, the stags are butt fucking. Even when she finally figured it out, she tried to brush it off as it's good that your logo is so popular and recognizable that people make parodies. The execs were not amused. So very much not amused. That company is not a client anymore. It wasn't a presentation, but a funny story anyways. In college we were working laptops in lab, and I left mine unlocked when I went to the washroom. When I came back the room was silent, because everyone was working. Until I get a MSN message and my computer screamed at top volume, "Hey everyone, I'm looking at gay porn over here." My usually stoic teacher just calmly said, "Mr. Mackey, can you please do that on your own time?" IDK if this qualifies. When I was a kid I went to a friend's bar mitzvah. Probably 150, so people are attending. Halfway through the service there is a time where everyone prays quietly to themselves. At this point in the service it's damn near silent in the room except for some quiet muttering. At that point the rabbi decided to go to the bathroom. He also didn't turn off the lavalier mic on his lapel, and we heard him peeing, farting, and saying "well got 'em" and yawning. At first no one knew what the sound was, and then everyone figured out at once. By the time we all knew what we were listening to it was pretty much over. I did feel awful for him when he walked back out. I'm sure someone said something at some point, but I never saw it. I was being presented to rather than presenting. My boss called our team in for a morning review. He was a bit like David Brent / Michael Scott, so at the end of the meeting he liked to show motivational videos. This one time he goes on YouTube, and as he starts typing his laptop freezes with only the letter R in the search bar. He was looking for the Any Given Sunday speech. As I'm sure you know, when you start typing YouTube will make suggestions, or show previous searches. So on the screen the first result under the A was Asian lesbian massage. Everybody saw. Nobody said a word. Before his laptop had unfrozen he closed it up, and said the video could wait until next time. It was never mentioned around him again, but the rest of us laughed about it for weeks. I was presenting to our biggest client. That morning I was browsing Reddit, and came across a picture with the title "Fuck That Shit," and it was a cartoon visual of two turds fucking. I somehow accidentally saved it to my browser, and it was labeled "Fuck That Shit" JPG. While I was presenting, the client said "What's that?" and pointed to the "Fuck That Shit" JPG, and I embarrassingly tried to explain that I accidentally saved a pic a friend sent to me, but it set the tone for the rest of the presentation. I was running a training class offshore. We wrapped for a break and I decided to check my personal email. Didn't think to turn off the projector, cause everyone was exiting the room, and just didn't think about it. I was expecting an email from my mom maybe, was really just going to quick scan the headers to make sure all my bill pays had processed. Any sales? I see an email from my bestie. Header says "We miss you, here's you Christmas card." This should be sweet, so I click. And for a brief second all my friends were on the projector naked posing in front of a Christmas tree wearing Santa hats. I'm sure a few of the trainees saw, but no one said anything. I used to work at a Fortune 100 back when the internet was the hot new thing. I was asked to do a demo of it to the brass. Now at that time one of the cool things you could do is a tour of the White House. Gov. So during my presentation I typed in White House. And it was an adult site. I survived. The funny thing is a coup came up after and asked, "Hey, if I wanted to visit the internet, what city is it in?" I straight up looked at him and said, "It's not in any one place, it's everywhere, all the time. It's kind of mind or brain that is everywhere, all the time. You just need to plug into it." He looked at me and said, "Well got him. The hip is one." Old story, but that context is important for understanding the why. I was interning at a smaller ad agency in the early days of the internet. Boss/principal wanted me to do some internet research on something mundane, us automobile market share, methinks. He was going to be out of the office for a couple hours and I could use his desktop computer to do it, as interns back then had no computer to call their own. This is pre-Google, when porn companies would manipulate keywords to show up in your Yahoo search results no matter what, so I search for automobile market share, or whatever, and get a list of links. The whole first page of the list is porn sites, and my curiosity gets the better of me. I click on a few just trying to understand what they could possibly have to do with automobile market share, poking around the metadata etc. And yes, of course, just a bit titillated as internet porn was a new concept at the time. However, I'm in someone important's office, door open, etc. So I quickly shut it down without any self-service, and continue the struggle to complete the task at hand, leaving the browser window open with the data I found to satisfy his question. Boss gets back and quickly calls me into his office, asking basically what's the meaning of this? Well, unbeknownst to me, blunders has just been invented, so I unknowingly left a dozen small browser windows full of porn ads sitting open under the main window with the research in it. That was a seriously awkward conversation, trying to explain that yes, I did click on some things, but honestly wasn't being inappropriate, and was more just baffled and confused. Even worse, the data I had found was pretty much useless, so he essentially thought the intern had just been jacking it in his office the last 2 hours instead of doing the requested task. We had to present a mobile app of our choice for university, and I chose DeviantArt. Okay, thanks to the filter, nothing was shown, but I had to present the different browsing mechanics, so when I ordered by new, I was sweating as hell, praying for having no adult or disturbing art uploaded at this moment. Nothing NSFW was here, thankfully. There were some suggestive arts, but nothing disturbing or unusual. But this could have been the case. PS, since it was an English presentation, and it was in France, I also had to explain why DeviantArt is named like that. Hopefully I knew that. Similar but not as grand. My husband and I do this thing, where we change the background or lock screen on his phone to things to either gross out, or make the other person laugh. It was my turn, and I set the background picture to some fan art from Tumblr of Rick from Rick and Morty with his dick out, but my husband didn't check his phone for ages, and I forgot about it. His mum came over, and I showed her something on the phone, and I pressed the button to go back to the home screen, but I didn't really look at it, I just had it in my hand, still talking. My husband took it off me, and I just thought he needed to check something, but after she left, he was jokingly like, yeah, I don't appreciate you waving Rick's cock in my mum's face, and for a second I was confused. Then he showed me the phone and I realized what I had done. I laughed, but I was like, she it. She obviously never said anything, but she definitely saw. Not me, and not technically an important presentation, but we had an art homework project once. Just to research an artist. Most people usually didn't do art homework, but the teacher said that failure to hand it would result in detention. This one guy copied and pasted a random website and emailed it to her, and included in what he copied was a link to some sketchy porn site. She clicked it in class. Everyone laughed. That guy got detention. I was in Iraq. Part of my job was to publish this report that was sent out to basically every unit in Iraq. My coworkers and I had got into the habit of messing with each other on our shifts and leaving random things like dicks and shits on the screen for the next shift to find. One of my coworkers changed the title page of this report to say "fuck this report." I didn't catch the change until after it was already sent out to high-ranking officers throughout Iraq. Almost instantly I was bombarded by equal comments of WTF and "that's hilarious." Thankfully, our commander fell into the "that's hilarious" category, so we didn't catch too much shit for it, but I'm sure that ominous feeling I had took at least a few years off my life. I was talking with someone about an old porn site from the 90s. I googled it to see if it still existed. Realized that it did. We had a good laugh and forgot about the conversation. A couple weeks later I was in class and my professor's laptop dies. I offer mine up so she can finish her presentation, which included googling reference images. As soon as she typed in the word "the," it auto-filled to the aforementioned porn site. I don't think she caught it, but there's no way out of a room full of people that no one else did. I was mortified and learned the valuable lesson of not googling weird shit outside of incognito. Kinda close to this, but instead of a presentation it was a big all hands with a big company, 3 offices in the US and 2 international. We were all on Slack and this one guy was on their mobile. Said guy didn't know his camera was on and proceeds to walk into a bathroom stall, sits down, mounts his phone on the toilet paper dispenser and watches a presentation. Luckily/unluckily, there were a lot of people on, so his thumbnail got kind of lost, but I and quite a few other people noticed. We slacked him. The panic on his face and him fumbling for the phone was priceless. Back when I was doing tier 1 help desk, I was scheduled to remote into a doctor's computer to troubleshoot something minor. At the scheduled time, I called the doctor's office and the front desk admin picked up. She told me, oh, he's in with a patient right now, but you can go ahead and remote into his computer and do your thing. Remoted into the computer, and my screen was suddenly filled with vigorous, ball-slapping gay sex. In 8th grade, we had a project to create a commercial for a product of our choice. Keep in mind, laptops weren't common for students, so we all had our commercials on phones or iPads, and would plug it into the computer, which projected onto the wall. One kid plugged his phone in, and the teacher went to downloads instead of the gallery. The poor kid just knew what was happening and yelled no, but it was too late, and he put his head down. The file took us straight to Pornhub, and even the teacher couldn't stop laughing at him. One of the funniest moments in middle school.